And I'll tell you what, it is interesting that this legislation passed there, and it's probably going to pass here. And it's something that you have to be careful in the way you talk about it, because when you talk about it, people are going to think you're a hateful person. I am not a hateful person, but this is something that is going to be out there that may affect you and your high school kids or your middle school kids if this legislation can come back down. So there's definitely going to be that. We'll get into that this afternoon. Looking forward to that. Also, talks of Shaquille O'Neal doing some silly things. AP rankings from Phil Steele, where he puts Clemson in his projected AP rankings. Yeah, we'll get into that as well. And 2 ACC schools make his early rankings as far as being in the top 10. 3, if you count Notre Dame, which, let's be honest, Notre Dame is simply there. The reason they're not in the ACC is a TV contract. I consider Notre Dame an ACC school. And I know people look at the whole football thing and they're like, okay, well, they're not a football. They should be. Okay. But that information from Phil Steele, that's coming up. Shaquille O'Neal is going to wrestle. He's 48 years old. We'll get into that. That kind of made me laugh, and I was like, all right, we'll talk about that. But I also want to start today with, we got some comments yesterday from Coach Dabo Swinney about Dakereon Joyner. And, we talked a little bit about this yesterday about where will Dakereon Joyner end up. Yeah, the sad thing is that I don't think anybody really knows, but you can tell by the way that Dabo Swinney talked about Kendrick that, he was kind of, just the vibe that you get was, yeah, we wish him well, but not necessarily you could just get the vibe. Maybe he's just done. Let's play these comments from Coach Dabo Swinney.
I know everybody probably heard the news about DK, and it's really not much to say about that other than he's not with us anymore. But also to say, I love DK, and man, he's a young man that I've always loved as a football player. He's got a good heart. He's got a really good heart, and he's never been a disrespectful young man or anything like that. Just sometimes, sometimes it just needs to be a change. And so I'm just so thankful had the opportunity to help him and hopefully make a difference for him these past 3 years. And thankful for all his contributions to our team and our program. And we'll be pulling for him wherever his next stop is and always be here for him. So really not much more to say than that. With that, I'll take the questions.
I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it seems like something happened where Dabo Swinney was like, you know what? I think I've just had enough. And you can read the stuff online and maybe this happened and maybe that happened, but it still bugs me that with any program where you can have a talent that Darion Kendrick is, and let's not make any mistake about it. The guy is an all ACC player. Okay. Across the board. Didn't even play much last season, was constantly in the doghouse, but still managed to be named an all ACC player by like 3 different organizations. So with Joyner leaving, why am I thinking Darion Kendrick? I'm sorry. Darion Kendrick is who I'm talking about. I think I put the wrong stuff in my my bio there for the YouTube folks. But Darion Kendrick leaving the program, a top ACC player, and that ends up just going down the road. And you wonder what happened behind the scenes there with Kendrick. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. Will it be the JUCO route? Will it be at a smaller school? Will it be at will he just decide to sit out and supplemental draft? My fault on my write-up over there. I was writing so many different things there yesterday. But anyway, 803-978-1832. Sorry I confused the folks online. as as I messed up my intro there. Let me make sure I can fix that. Anyway. All right, so there we go. So I fixed it. Anyway, we have that happening with Coach Swinney yesterday. So if you want to talk about that, we can get into that as well. And of course, we can talk about the Clemson baseball team. They get set up to play baseball today. So there's that as well. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown. It just, when you hear those comments, and it just seemed like, all right, he had a chance and it didn't work out for him. So there's that. By the way, I wanted to bring up this AP story here from the AP Top 10 for 2021. Very interesting stuff here with Phil Steele, who predicts these things at like a 96% success rate. Here are his top 10 for next season. Alabama's at number 1, Clemson's at number 2, Georgia at 3, Oklahoma at 4, Ohio State at 5, A&M at 6, Notre Dame at 7, North Carolina at 8, Iowa State at 9, and Cincinnati at 10. So, yeah, the top 10 there, kind of interesting when you step back and look at it for just a second. You've got 2 ACC teams and Notre Dame in the mix in that top 10. SEC teams include Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M. And Cincinnati at number 10. Man, that's kind of interesting that he thinks they're going to be ranked that high. Obviously, they're going to be pushing for a New Year's 6 spot, and maybe if enough teams mess up, they could possibly make the college football playoff. So that's very interesting too. I do have one other story that I like today I wanted to share with you really quick here. Big Cat Bryant has decided, yeah, I'm going to go from Auburn to UCF. Yeah, he's following his coach. You know, these coaches have relationships with these guys, and Gus Malzahn apparently had a good enough relationship with Big Cat Bryant that he's convinced him to come to UCF. Interesting stuff there. Bryant had 56 tackles, 10 sacks, 7 passes defended, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery for the Tigers. Left the program as a graduate transfer following this season. So that's some interesting stuff there. Now he's going to go to UCF. What an interesting story that is. All right, then finally, my other topic here that I really like. Charlotte is the big going to have the big game between Clemson and Georgia. You know, Phil still thinks it's going to be a top 3 matchup. With the way that things are going in Charlotte with COVID-19, you know, I think that we have to stop for a second and think about, is this game going to happen in Charlotte? You know, the governor up there, Governor Cooper, has been kind of having the state on like a kind of still locked down. And with that, you know, I don't think anybody wants to go into the football season with the thought of, hey, you know, we may not be able to have at least 75, 80% capacity. According to an article I read this morning, as of February 26th, Bank of America Stadium, home to the Panthers, can allow just over 22,000 fans to attend games, which is up from the 5,200 that they had when Clemson beat Notre Dame in the ACC championship game, which, by the way, that would have sold out. People would have went for that big time. But the other thing is what can they do if North Carolina is not going to relax their restrictions? I think the game needs to go somewhere else. And I think they have to talk about this now. And I think the government up there is going to be like, we need to wait, we need to wait, we need to wait. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how much longer you can wait. What if they move some games around? What if they decided, hey, we're going to take this game to Atlanta and play it on Monday night in the Georgia Dome there, or the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. That's something we got to think about. 803-978-1832. SEC Dog says we should move the game right now out of that dump of a state. He says at Clemson is okay with me. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe on the financial front, they could set it up where it's like a neutral site game and split ticket revenue with both teams. But to me, I think it would be better even if you took the game back to Georgia and played it in Athens. I'd much rather have that than what we currently have. 803-978-1832. Out to the phones we go. And good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing today?
Ray, what's up, brother? How are you, man?
Hey, well, you kind of hit on something I was thinking about earlier this morning. I know we're, 6 months away from the Clemson-Georgia game, but of course it'll be here before you know it, as we all know. And, the fact that, North Carolina is, a state that seems doesn't allow that many fans to their sporting events. I think Clemson was in a game last year in the state, and I don't think nobody was allowed in except for family and a few friends, maybe.
Right, yeah.
But and I'm thinking if they don't allow more fans, which could be the case, and I'm not trying to make any kind of political shot or anything like that, but what I'm saying is, where I think the ideal place would be to move this venue to?
Where's that?
I think in Jacksonville would be great. The Gator Bowl.
Yeah, and have it. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but I think the thing that bugs me the most about this is that the SEC kind of has taken Atlanta as their town, okay? And the ACC is trying to make Charlotte their town. When you think of the SEC, people think of Birmingham, but they play the championship game in Atlanta. It's the same way with Charlotte, and that's supposed to be the hub of the ACC where, I know they had their basketball tournaments in Greensboro, but they have the baseball tournament's going to be there at the Charlotte Knight Stadium, and they always have the football tournament there, or the football championship there. It just doesn't. Sure. It just doesn't work. Charlotte need to figure it out. And with the news that was released today, and where starting next Monday, I think it's 50% of our state is eligible for the COVID vaccine. Decisions need to be made now. And when you are a multi-million-dollar organization like the people that put this game on up in Charlotte, you're paid to make tough decisions. And they need to figure this out quick because that game is going to literally be here before we know it.
Oh, I agree. Logistics and people traveling, things like that. But the reason I like Jacksonville so much, and I do agree with you, Charlotte is a wonderful city, and I think it is a good place for the ACC. I mean, got a great airport there, good city and all that, but just during this COVID situation, I don't know if it's so ideal at the moment. And the thing I like about Jacksonville, a lot of old-time Clemson people will tell you, Jacksonville was always a special place because Clemson was winning Gator Bowls left and right back in the early 80s before they got the machine going real good. And they always seemed to recruit well out of Jacksonville. So for some reason, I think Jacksonville, it would be just a good place to have it. And plus, they're more of an open state in North Carolina. But that was just kind of my take on that, Rob. But thanks for letting me talk.
Appreciate it, buddy. SEC Dog with another comment. I'd love to see it move to Jacksonville. That would be awesome. Anywhere besides North Carolina is okay with me, though. And you know what? I think that I feel bad for a lot of the folks that work in the restaurant and the bar industry and all that stuff that's built up around Bank of America Stadium, the hotels and all that. I feel bad for them because, they're still in the midst of this COVID pause. And, after hearing the news today that we are going to have 50% of the state is going to be able to get the vaccine, and that's in South Carolina. I mean, I would think it would be the same for North Carolina, unless once you cross that border over there, things get silly. It doesn't make any sense. And someone needs to hold these people's feet to the fire and tell them point blank, look, we plan on having this game here. And judging by what we know now, where, next week, 50% of the people, I'm thinking by the middle of May, if you want a COVID vaccine, you should be able to go through a drive-through and get it. That's how widespread some of this stuff is going to be. And I'm not someone that thinks that COVID is a joke. I'm not that. But if the vaccine is completely out there and the capability of people to get it, you should be able to make an educated decision now that, yes, we're going to be able to have the fans where they want to be there if they want to go. Now, there's still going to be a section of people that won't go anywhere near a stadium, and I understand that. They have the right to be that way. But it shouldn't be this complicated. And people are making it way, way, way too complicated. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Charlie says, I'm not half of South Carolina is willing to take the vaccine, and that's fine. But the point is that if you want to take the vaccine, you should be able to take it and go from there. Now, if you're buying a ticket, I think they have they can tell you, hey, if you want to come to the game, you got to have the vaccine. I think that's going to be out there too. Now, if you choose to go to the game and you want to go, get the vaccine. I went to CVS this morning to pick up some medicine for my son, and there's a line of much older folks that were there that were getting their vaccines done. And I think that's kind of the way we need to go. SEC Dog's on fire today saying Jacksonville will be a good fit for the game. I'd love to see it. Clemson fans would enjoy that experience. Yeah, well, I'm not really into neutral site games at all. And I think that Georgia and Clemson eventually will have something set up where they play each other. I think that's going to happen. Those two schools should play each other anyway. But if you have to do the neutral site game, I'd much rather have it in Jacksonville where we can actually have fans if they want to go. If they don't want to go, then fine. Now, I know people are going to hit up with me. Well, those people could be spreaders for everybody else. Things completely change. You have the opportunity to get that vaccine. And that just makes the most sense. Quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about more. We got a lot more stuff we'll get into today. You're listening to The Rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400, of course, around the world on the iHeart Radio app. Quick break, and we'll be right back. Charlie, you're exactly right. And the thing is, though, is that you and I think alike. And you and I, and a lot of people read things too. But I mean, there's sections of people that they don't believe in vaccines and everything else, and that's fine. It's frustrating, though, that they're still locking everything down when we have this vaccine that's out there. Doesn't make any sense. Rob, do you like the home and home games? The Gamecocks are scheduled a few years down the road. Yeah, I think that's a great thing with all schools. I really believe that. I wish South Carolina would play North Carolina every year. And I know that there's a back section of folks that are upset because, what happened with South Carolina leaving the ACC. These are much people that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s now that are upset about that. But put all that, we should have South Carolina and North Carolina playing every year. Georgia should play Clemson every single year. In all four of the major revenue drawing sports. Women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, softball now too. And, of course, football. That should happen. I don't understand why this is so complex with these athletic directors. It's like they sit around and they can't see that they're putting out a product that could be much better if they could make it more of a regional type thing where you're playing these guys. It just makes sense. Jimmy's right about that. And you know what, though? And I've said this too. It's starting to filter down a little bit. Alabama's doing this. Florida is scheduling games, the non-conference games in other spots. So, yeah, I mean, it's happening. You should play them every year, Brandon. Every year, Brandon. That's the way it should be. Of course. Wayne's my buddy, man. I love Wayne Whiteside. That's my friend. My first job in radio was producing Wayne Whiteside's show. That was a long time ago. Wayne didn't have hair then, but he didn't have grandbabies yet either. Well, welcome back to the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Charlie agrees with me online. UGA and Clemson should play each other every year. That's a big game. Can you imagine the bitterness between Clemson and Georgia every year if those two teams played each other? There's bitterness now and they don't play every year. And maybe that's what makes it more special. But think of it from this perspective. This year, and you can look at the past, say, 3 or 4 years. If those two teams played, it's a top 10 non-conference matchup that you could have at the beginning of the season every year. You're telling me that's not going to draw eyes for recruits and everything else? If I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a schedule and I'm a player that wants to be in the big time spotlight, it used to be, hey, we're going to be on TV, but if you're going to be on TV, that's great. You can pull up any game on your phone right now. You can watch Clemson and East Tennessee State play baseball, and there's going to be maybe 500 fans in the stands. Same thing with the Winthrop, South Carolina game tonight. You can pull up any game anywhere. But to be the national game of the week, basically, you could theoretically have that pretty much every year with Clemson and Georgia, and the hatred and the bitterness that would go on between those two programs would be, I think, just great. You could develop it's a rivalry anyway, but it could be the new quote unquote conference rivalry that would be one of the more heated around the country. These two teams go at each other on the recruiting trail a lot. Remember, Clemson dipped into that state to get Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, the list goes on and on. Even the young linebacker, I think it's Barrett Carter, was right out of the Atlanta area. But think of it from this perspective. Clemson, in theory, every year then would have South Carolina, which they're going to have every year, Georgia, and Georgia Tech. All three of those schools in the same mix. And then in certain years, they'll have North Carolina as a non-conference game. So that just makes too much sense. South Carolina playing North Carolina, that should happen too. And I think there's people that sit in smoke-filled rooms that, the big folks that, well, can we play them here? Can we play them there? There's a lot of bitterness with North Carolina, with South Carolina from stuff that's from a long time ago, I think. They got to let all that go. They really do. And the reality is that if you want fans in the stands and people to care about this stuff on a higher level, you can't have games with, Georgia playing Murray State. No disrespect to the Racers, because no one cares. You're going to get the casual fan that's going to watch, the hardcore fan, but getting the casual fan is going to be tough. And I think that also it's going to affect you later on in the college football playoff stuff, because if you look at a schedule with someone and they go 12-0, but their non-conference schedule is 4 teams that are, not Power 5 teams, it's not going to look as good. It's going to look kind of flat. Where if you're Georgia and you have non-conference games against Clemson every year, that's one of them. It's going to help you out a lot. It just makes a lot of sense. We'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832. And should this game in Charlotte be moved, I think if it's set where we're only going to guarantee 26,000 fans, they need to make a decision now. They really do. These kickoff classics and everything else, they mean too much at the beginning of the season. And you know what? Other states are going to make money off of it. I'm sure Georgia would love to have in the Georgia Dome on Monday night, Labor Day night. I think that's feasible in the schedule. If that building's open, have that Clemson Georgia game right there. You talk about drawing some folks on Labor Day. Woof. That's what you want. But Charlotte and the folks that are up there, they're not the government up there. Because I think among people right now, I think we're all COVIDed out, to be honest with you. And people want to get back to where they were. And I kind of want that too, but I want it to be safely. But I think the way to fix this is very simple. With the availability of the vaccine getting to a point where 50% of our state can have it next week, starting Monday. And that'll be like the first week of March. By June, by the middle of May, it should be completely out there. If you want to go to the game, you have to have proof of, Alan corrected me. Thank you, sir. Mercedes-Benz, not the Georgia Dome. Yes, sir, you're right. I call it the Georgia Dome because I'm I'm nostalgic. I like the Georgia Dome, even though I know the Georgia Dome's not there anymore. But anyway, getting back to what I was talking about, I think that may be something that comes out there. Hey, if you're going to come to the game, we need proof of your vaccination. And then we can go from there. 803-978-1832. Would you take the vaccination, by the way, to go to your favorite sporting events? Because we live in a world of lawyers. And with that, the lawyers are going to determine a lot of this because no one wants to get sued. Tom's asking, do you have to take an antibody test? I did take an antibody test after I got the COVID back in July. And they tell you it's 90 days worth, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But I think it makes a lot of sense to set it up where, hey, if you're gonna come in here, you got to have a COVID vaccine. Eric says Hawaii is rolling out COVID vaccines pretty quickly. I get my second shot tomorrow. I'd gladly get my shots to see my Tigers play. Yeah, I think a lot of people would. I still think there's a section of society that'll tell you. One of my friends is a very, very smart guy. He told me vaccines are proven that they don't work, and that's just how he feels. But if we want to get back to a sense of normalcy in our lives where we can actually walk around without a face mask on, take our kids to they do this thing called Parents Night Out at my kids' school. They're doing a virtual Parents Night Out this year, which takes away from all of that. If we want to get all of that back, you may have to get the vaccination. All right, other things we're going to talk about today. We have that South Carolina playing Arkansas tonight in basketball down here at the Colonial Life Arena, which if you go to a basketball game right now, even if the it's kind of sad with the Gamecocks playing so in such a big building. It's almost like playing in a barn with the way the COVID stuff is right now. But we'll talk about that game in just a moment. Also, a law passed in Tennessee. Tennessee passes a bill barring certain students from playing high school sports. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I have to word my stuff very carefully here because I don't want people to think that I'm a hateful individual. But this is something that's probably going to come up here in the Palmetto State. Jimmy says, I'll take a vaccine to not have to watch Clemson, period. Thank you. Thank you for contributing to the show, Jimmy. The hatred still runs deep with the South Carolina Clemson fans. 803-978-1832. Would you take a shot? Would you take a shot of the vaccine to go to your team's games this season? We're taking calls on that this afternoon. Of course, here on The Rundown. All right. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We'll be back in just a moment. Rob lies, but he's not hateful. That's funny. You guys be supportive of Jackpot, man. He's trying to change himself, brother. And I feel for him, man. I'm somebody that battles the weight stuff too, man. And it's hard, man. It's really hard. You guys think I'm going to get in trouble for talking about Tennessee banning transgender students from playing high school sports? I think I will, but just being honest, we'll see. I am working out, man. I'm doing no, I misquoted the stuff on that, man. I'm fixing that. Sorry about that. I put Joyner in there and I was thinking about I don't know why I was thinking to carry on. My fault, guys. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to write the wrong headline there. That's my fault. See if I can edit this and make it right. Kale could probably lift some stuff, man. What do you get when you cross the Mercedes with a race car? You get chills. You get goosebumps. There's really no other way. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about it anyway, and I may catch grief for it, but at this point, I don't care. When you see some of the stuff that's out there, it's not very cool. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Well, welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. The name of this show is called The Rundown because I try to give you the rundown of stuff and let you know about things that are coming up before they actually happen. That's kind of what I try to do. And this comes from the state of Tennessee and something that is going to happen, I think, eventually here in South Carolina. It's going to be brought up eventually. The Tennessee voted 27-6 Monday night to approve a bill that would effectively ban transgender athletes from participating in middle and high school sports under their gender identity. The House has not scheduled a final vote on the bill. You know, we'll take calls on this at 803-978-1832. I don't want people calling up and being rude, but I think that the thing that I'm all about inclusion in everything, but the thing that bothers me with this is that I feel bad for the female athletes in a couple of different sports that I've been able to see and read different stories on with this. So transgender athletes that move from the male side to the female side and they compete in certain things like combat sports. I just don't see how that works. I also think that it takes away the rights of young ladies that are competing for track scholarships and things like that. You see a lot of this in high school stuff where, you know, girls can't compete with the transgender athletes. They come in and dominate these sports. And girls that were ranked number 1, number 2 in their state end up 3rd and 4th behind these transgender athletes. And I just don't think that's fair. I really don't. And I think this is something that there's going to be a section of folks that are to the far left of the world that are going to say everybody should have a chance to play. And I get that. But on the other hand, can we not stand up for the young ladies that are going to be put into a position where they're going to have to compete with someone where it's going to be really tough for them to compete? It's not exactly a balanced playing field. I don't agree with that at all. And I think that this bill, it's probably going to be taken to court and it's probably going to have people that are going to be upset about it. But from this perspective, I just don't understand why we can't step back and just look at it from what about the athletes that are on that go over and they dominate on the female side and they end up taking things away from those athletes that are over there. And on the other end, here's the other part. You don't really hear a lot of the where girls will try to compete with boys and the girls winning out on a lot of that stuff. You don't hear a lot of that. It's generally athletes that go over and compete in the female side, and they end up taking advantage of being bigger, stronger athletes. I mean, that's not that far-fetched. The worst is in the world of like combat sports, like mixed martial arts and stuff like that. You see some of I may share some of these later on my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. See some of the beatings that happens here. It's just not good. But I think this bill, if it passes in Tennessee, it's going to pass, or it's going to come to par down here in South Carolina and around the country. So look out for that. One other note on my blog page today, there are two teams that Las Vegas right now says has the betting favorites to secure the services of Deshaun Watson. The two teams are the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. Yes, the Carolina Panthers are the leading favorite right now. If Watson leaves Houston, they think he's going to end up staying with Houston, which I don't think that's going to happen. But right now, the Carolina Panthers are the leading pick there. You can find all of the odds for folks on my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. The Denver Broncos are right there in the mix too. People tell me online, Blake says I should avoid that topic like the plague. Thank you, Blake. Tom says, I believe if you want to have a trans athlete on your entire team should be considered co-ed. Okay, that's an interesting thing. Blake says the tallest, strongest, fastest cop in my town is a woman. Okay. And that's fine too. Oh, Jason says, now what's going on with Tennessee? Just putting it out there. The transgender thing really affects wrestling as well, especially in high school. And I agree. I agree with all that. I just, with track and mixed martial arts, those are the two that I see that are really affected by this a lot. And if you can finish first or second in the state, you're pretty much in line to get a scholarship with a lot of track stuff. But if you finish third or fourth when you could have been second, that may move you down the scale there. And how does that work with colleges? I mean, when they go to recruit, I don't understand how that works. Maybe someone can educate me. I don't know. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us on the rundown. That's something that is, I'm serious, is going to be out there a good bit. So we're also taking calls on what I talked about earlier. Would you take a vaccination to join or to go to your favorite sporting event? Would you get vaccinated? Are we all going to have vaccination cards? Are they going to make our kids have to get vaccinated to go back to school? Some comments about Deshaun Watson. Brandon says they want too much for Watson. I saw where they wanted McCaffrey, Bridgewater, Brian Burns, and our number 8 pick for Watson, and that's just too much. Well, I've seen where certain people are talking about giving away 2 complete drafts for Watson. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
I heard your comments about the vaccination. I do think people should go get them. I have gotten my first 2.
Right.
I work in the medical field.
Yeah.
And I think people have a stigma these days about vaccines, especially the new age parents.
Yeah.
Thinking that there's some government conspiracy to harm their kids.
I remember Jenny McCarthy talking about vaccines gave her son autism. That was the big one.
Yeah, gave her son, yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And as far as the transgender athletes, isn't that covered under Title IX? I mean, Title IX really goes into
I think Title
about women's sports is what it is what, you know, is what I've read about it.
Mm-hmm.
That it has to be, if you have a men's basketball program and a women's basketball program, and how they have to kind of line up with each other.
I think
with resources and different
right.
things like that. So I couldn't see a man transgendering or becoming a woman ever being allowed to play in college. I just don't see it ever happening.
Well, I think that too, but I think this is for middle and high school. So I think that's kind of the it's different than the whole college front. But
the middle and the high school things are kind of crazy because they're in states that are crazy. I mean, they are. They're in New Hampshire and they're in Maine and Vermont. They're just crazy states.
Yeah.
That say, I don't mind if my daughter gets beat up by this young man. That's fine with me.
The combat sports and the track are the two that I just when you see that, it's just not good.
Joe Rogan had an article he wrote about the MMA thing.
Yeah.
And how that should never be allowed. And Dana White said he would never allow it, to happen, under his watch. But, there's there's a female athlete that was born female, and her testosterone is too high for the Olympics. So they say she is disqualified. And I don't understand where they're coming from with that, because she was born a woman, and there's no doubt about it.
Right.
I think her last name is Castor.
I'd have to look that up.
And she's going now to another court to try to get it overthrown, but they won't let her compete against women unless she has a surgery that will limit her testosterone levels.
Yeah, and that's
really
a completely other different area. But I think that the high school and the middle school is what's going to come first, and then we'll go from there. So
but I know in college that they do tests for performance enhancing drugs, and if you have more of one thing than another, you can be disqualified. I mean, we saw that with the athlete from Clemson. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence, he had taken some supplement and he couldn't play in the playoffs.
That's true. Yeah, you're right about all that, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you calling. A couple of notes from the folks online. David's right. Amanda Nunes could beat up some guys. Ronda Rousey fought guys. So it's not an issue of toughness. I just think that we're not talking on a pro level. We're talking about you go out for your middle school track team, and that these are things that could hinder you if you are a young lady. I mean, I don't think I'm being hateful when I say that. I don't know. We shall see. We'll see if the cancel culture gets me at Rob Sounds Good on Twitter. By the way, it's International Women's Business Month, and Fox Sports Radio 1400 is celebrating local success stories. To hear interviews with key women leaders and learn more about their businesses, go to Fox Sports Radio 1400/Midlands. One more call before we go to break. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
Nothing much. I just want to say, one, I like your show. I've been watching it for a while now.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering. Oh, you're welcome. And I was going to say, how do you feel? What is your predictions on the Clemson-Georgia game?
I think that game is going to be close. I think Clemson's secondary is suspect now, especially with Darion Kendrick gone. So if Clemson can get into, if their secondary can get right, is the best way that I can say it. If they play like they did in the Ohio State game when they had Kendrick,
they're screwed.
Then
they play like they did.
Yeah, JT Daniels is going to light them up like a Christmas tree, and he has the capability to do that. So there's definitely that there, and Georgia could win that game convincingly if Clemson has to play like that. But if they can get some good secondary play and make Daniels uncomfortable, Clemson could win that game big too on the other side. So it's going to be a fascinating game to start the season.
Well, the one thing I'm excited to see is I'm ready to see JT Daniels and DJ Uiagalelei, because that's going to be crazy.
Oh yeah. Both of those guys will be playing, getting drafted, and everything else. So I think it's the best early season matchup of the year, to be honest with you.
And one more thing.
Sure.
I was going to say, do you think Bryce Young actually has a chance to start for Alabama?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can figure out what Nick Saban's going to do. I have no clue. I think that he's the next in line, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, whoever impresses Nick Saban the most, that's who's going to get to start. So, I mean, he has a chance, obviously. He has all the bells and whistles for everyone saying that he's great. We'll see how that works out for him, though. But I honestly don't know. He should get the start, but you never know.
No, but you have a good rest of your day.
Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good day, man.
You too.
All right, there you go. Thanks for calling in. We're going to do a quick break and we come back. We'll have more for you here on the rundown as we wrap up the Tuesday edition on Fox Sports Radio 1400. JT Daniels Christ. I would have to say on the Zamir White thing, that's a good question, Brandon. They may try to, if I'm Kirby Smart, I would try to throw the ball and test that Clemson secondary. That's what I would do. They may not give him enough carries where he can get 100 yards. And that's not saying, taking anything away from him. I'm just saying the game plan may get him set up to a point where he doesn't have the opportunity. Blake's a hater. If you look closely, JT Daniels is really Edward Scissorhands. That's funny. Charlie says, whatever happened to being pro women in Title 9 or 12? Can't remember what I know. I'm sure I'm going to catch grief from that, but I had to mention this story because this is something that's going to affect middle schoolers and high schoolers, I think, around the country eventually. I really do. But I'm looking forward to that matchup, the first matchup that season with I'm probably going to go once we know if they're going to allow the press in the press box. I'll probably go to the press box for that game. We'll see, unless I'm doing covering the Gamecocks that weekend. So we shall see. Y'all know this is like my 18th year covering the Gamecock program. I can't believe I've been working here that long. Kind of shocked by that, to be honest with you. David's too smart. Welcome back to the rundown. My buddy David from the great state of Louisiana is a very smart individual. Just because Amanda Nunez can beat up dudes doesn't mean she should be contractually obligated to fight them. Well, Dana White's probably not going to let that happen. So there you go with that. Some other comments. Brandon says Miles Murphy was a very good freshman. He expects him to be a first-team All-ACC as a sophomore. The fact that he didn't make the team last year says a lot. I mean, he was, I think, the most dominant, one of the most dominant freshmen in the ACC last year. Zach says UGA is going to have 3 backs with 100 yards on Clemson, and JT Daniels will throw for 300 yards. I would place a small wager with you on that. Georgia's not putting up 600 yards of offense against Clemson. That's not happening on any level. It's just not happening. I mean, you're 3 100-yard rushers and a 300-yard passer. That's not going to work. I'll buy 300 yards passing and a 100-yard rusher. Okay. They got their game plan moving. That was great. That's but hey, they're going to get 600 yards of offense. No, I'm not buying that at all. All right, we're still taking calls this afternoon. Would you get vaccinated to go to your favorite sporting event? Do you think that Clemson should be Clemson and Georgia should move their game from Charlotte this coming year, for September? I think they need to make a decision now. David says, I'd buy 450 total offense. Yeah, I don't think that's far-fetched. It's really not. RMF Todd says UGA secondary getting boat raced by Clemson. Everyone else says they would get vaccinated. Yeah, that's a good thing. I haven't had anyone that says, hey, I wouldn't get vaccinated yet. I think it's getting to a point now where you're going to have to make that decision. If you want to go into certain spots around the country, you're going to have to get vaccinated. Simple as that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon. Jimmy with a valid question. What's the over and under on Georgia players under suspension for the first game? Oh, goodness. We're kind of playing a game here. What's going to happen next? A Georgia arrest or a Tennessee player leaving the program? It's one or the other. It seems like we've had tons of that this offseason. Still, one of the big things, the story about Big Cat Bryant saying, hey, I'm going to go to Auburn. That's a big deal. Big deal there. Gus Malzahn doing his thing. One other note here. Shaquille O'Neal is going to do All Elite Wrestling. He's 48 years old. Admits that he's been to like a wrestling training facility, but has not really done a lot of wrestling. But Shaq is going to wrestle on AEW Dynamite. And yeah, he's going to wrestle. Who is it? It's Jade Cargill in a mixed tag match to take on Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida tomorrow night. So he's wrestling tomorrow night. They're not even saving it for the pay-per-view. You know, Paul White, the Big Show, is wrestling there. Here's what's going to happen. Paul White is going to come out and then get into the mix with Shaq, and then they're going to put that on the pay-per-view. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. They just signed Paul White, and their next big pay-per-view is going to have Paul White versus Shaquille O'Neal, two 7-foot individuals that are over the age of 45, closer to 50, in an AEW ring, trying to mix it up for your entertainment, sir. This should have happened a long time ago, but hey, there you go with that. David with another interesting question. What's the over and under on Eric Gilbert playing for UGA or Clemson? I don't know, man. I don't even think he registered to play or like got into classes at Florida. I don't know. We shall see on that. That's going to be interesting stuff there. All right. Don't forget the podcast of the show will be up at 5:00 today. Enjoy the interaction with you folks over here in the chat room. It means a lot for you guys to spend some time with me every day. And of course, you're always welcome to check out that podcast. If you missed it, it's up at about 5:00. Oh man, we'll see what comes our way tomorrow. By the way, Gamecock baseball tonight, they play at Winthrop at 6:00. Clemson and East Tennessee State, they will tangle at Doug Kingsmore. That first pitch for that game is at 4:00. Gamecock basketball tonight. Frank Martin, pretty happy with his team after that win over Georgia. Will they be able to carry it over into their matchup with Arkansas tonight?
It was awesome to watch our guys get on that bus and feel good about playing and feel good about winning. Winning is not the cure to all evil, but it definitely picks everyone's spirits up to just reinforce what you're doing.
There you go. Don't forget, they're playing Arkansas tonight. Tip-off's at 6:30. Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is next.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Follow him on Twitter at Clemson Sports. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We will see you tomorrow. Man, I'd beat the crap out of the Comrade and Kale. That wouldn't even be close. Would not even be close. That's an entirely different topic there. Tom Herman's a scumbag, by the way. I'm learning more and more about him. He's pretty much a scumbag. It's kind of how I feel about that. I'll be here every day, 3:00, brother. 3 to 4 every day, all right? Appreciate you checking out the show, man. You guys are awesome. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?